In the music world, sustained fame is elusive for many. A harsh reality is that increased renown often leads to greater vulnerability to temptation and poor judgment. Certain artists, regardless of their gifts, succumb to destructive patterns, resulting in the most devastating incidents in R&B history. The accounts of 18 legendary figures I will now discuss have left an enduring impact via controversies that profoundly impacted the entertainment business. Care to speculate on their identities? View this video for the answer. Be prepared for some startling revelations. The realities behind the glittering facade are quite astonishing. 18. Aaron Neville, a car thief who became a New Orleans R&B legend. Possessing one of history's most distinctive falsetto voices, Aaron Neville achieved dominance with "Tell It Like It Is," solidifying his status as an irreplaceable New Orleans music icon. However, few are aware of his past as a juvenile delinquent, an addict, a philanderer, and a target of tax evasion investigations. In 1958, at age 17, Aaron was arrested for stealing a car and illegally possessing a firearm. A 6-month prison sentence exposed him to isolation, violence, and profound despair. Upon release, he spiraled into heroin addiction. Throughout the 1960s, Aaron immersed himself in drug abuse and relentless hedonism. Nights were consumed by hallucinations, fueled by alcohol, pills, and numerous casual relationships. During the 70s, despite being married, he engaged in persistent infidelity, ultimately destroying his marriage. As his musical career flourished, the IRS scrutinized his finances due to outstanding tax liabilities. His life teetered on the brink of collapse once more. The release of "Tell It Like It Is," however, rescued him from the depths of despair. He transitioned from a street criminal and drug addict into a prominent R&B star. Even at the pinnacle of success, though, the indelible marks of his past remained. 17. Robert Brown, a man whose life spiraled downward due to substance abuse, aggression, and numerous extramarital relationships. Brown achieved R&B superstardom, transitioning from New Edition to launch a successful solo career that defined the 90s. His single, "My Prerogative," reached the top of the charts, establishing him as a leading figure in the jack swing movement. However, this success was overshadowed by self-destructive behavior. In 1993, during a violent outburst at his Atlanta residence, Brown physically assaulted Whitney Houston, leaving her injured and their home vandalized. He faced arrest, a $10,000 fine, and a temporary performance ban. This marked only the beginning of his decline. Starting in 1995, Brown's cocaine addiction escalated, costing him over $1,500 each week. He experienced periods of unemployment and homelessness, even residing under a Los Angeles overpass. A 1996 drunk driving arrest revealed a severe lack of memory, as he could not account for his actions over the preceding 48 hours. His tumultuous marriage, coupled with countless infidelities and 7 children from 4 different mothers, devastated Whitney Houston. Their acrimonious divorce concluded in 2007. His music career faltered, fan support dwindled, and Brown's reputation was irrevocably tarnished. Despite attempts at rehabilitation and reunions with New Edition, his history of addiction and self-destruction followed him, a legacy of devastating and irreversible repercussions. This is the lasting impression Robert Brown created for himself. 16. Al Green, a fallen angel, a soul icon with a violent, drug-addled history. The 1970s soul king, the voice behind "Let's Stay Together," was a major American music figure whose record sales exceeded 20 million. A remarkable career, a smooth voice, Yet his squeaky clean persona was a deceptive facade. In 1974, Al Green's former girlfriend attacked him in his Memphis residence, throwing boiling water that caused third-degree burns to his back and arms. His skin was severely damaged. She then committed suicide with a gunshot wound to the head, expiring on their bed next to an unworn wedding gown. Her belongings included an unsigned testament, a firearm purchase receipt dated 3 days earlier, and evidence of Green's rejection. Law enforcement handled the matter discreetly, but it was merely the beginning. Subsequently, Green faced allegations of assaulting his secretary, causing facial lacerations that required 18 stitches by slamming her head into a glass door. This incident was also suppressed. 3 years later, another woman accused Green of striking her with a tree branch. No apprehension was made, and the case file disappeared within 3 weeks. Simultaneously, he reportedly spent up to $8,000 weekly on illicit substances and sex workers. 3 children from 3 different states resulted in a protracted paternity lawsuit due to Green's refusal of DNA testing. After the Mary incident, he professed a religious conversion, becoming a minister. Yet his piety was dubious. He was found to preach on Sundays and engage in extramarital affairs on Mondays. He continued selling millions of records, over 20 million, but failed to attain the heights of his 1972 success. Today, when he lifts his hands in prayer, the scars on his arms serve as a poignant reminder of the fiery, bloody ordeal he endured to survive. 15. Screaming Jay Hawkins, the insane voodoo priest, and 33 fatherless children with one father. Screaming Jay Hawkins was the epitome of unrestrained pandemonium in rock and roll history. He wasn't merely a vocalist, he was a living nightmare. The first to introduce a coffin on stage, clutching a skull while wailing like a possessed fiend. I Put a Spell on You was prohibited in several states due to its unsettling nature. However, that song was only the surface. Hawkins himself was the genuine curse. Starting in 1952, Hawkins plunged headlong into self-destruction. Every performance was a drunken spree, averaging 7 bottles of bourbon weekly, combined with sleeping pills or amphetamines. That was his method for maintaining energy. Following performances were countless nights of destruction and screaming. Hotels in Chicago, Dallas, and New York contacted the police at least 12 times within 5 years. Yet nobody dared to testify. No one possessed the courage to reveal the truth. Women leaving his room remained silent, many bearing bruises, but none spoke out. By the 1960s, Hawkins had no comprehension of finances. He didn't save it, he squandered it. All his show earnings were spent on hard liquor, cigarettes, prostitutes, and flamboyant suits. His 1971 tax return indicated over $150,000 in unreported income, triggering an IRS investigation. His music royalties were almost seized in 1973. He only avoided this by agreeing to pay $40,000 in taxes and penalties over 3 years. But by 1976, the situation remained unchanged. Every warning was disregarded like the final glass of bourbon. In 1982, during a 10-day tour, Hawkins destroyed 3 hotel rooms, shattering mirrors, smashing TVs, and scorching curtains with cigarette butts. Total damages exceeded $9,500. There was no apology, only a wild grin and his usual remark to his manager: "I'm Screaming Jay. I generate chaos." On February 12, 2000, Hawkins passed away in France due to surgical complications from an ear procedure. His estate was virtually non-existent, consisting of a few stage costumes, a battered Cadillac, and royalties from I Put a Spell on You, the only asset still generating approximately $12,000 annually. He left no formal will, only a handwritten note from 1993 stating, "If my children appear, they inherit the estate. No witnesses, no lawyer." Upon the announcement of his death, another tragedy unfolded. Over 50 individuals from across the US, Canada, and even the Bahamas contacted his manager, claiming to be his biological offspring. After almost a year of turmoil, a television station funded DNA tests for the entire group. The results were astonishing. Individuals actually shared Hawkins's genes, including 4 sets of twins. They were strangers to one another. None had ever heard their father's voice beyond old recordings. An 8-year legal battle commenced. It wasn't about money, as there was none to dispute. They fought over scraps, a skull-topped cane, an unfinished handwritten letter, a torn piece of a cape. No one triumphed. No one received anything except a harsh reality. Their father was a voodoo priest who lived a chaotic life and left behind a legacy of blood, screams, and nameless solitude. 14. Marion Suge Knight, the infamous head of Death Row Records, transformed the U.S. hip-hop scene. He propelled Dr. Dre, Tupac, and Snoop Dogg to legendary status, but his reign was marked by violence and tragedy. Knight didn't just produce music. He controlled it like a mob boss, using intimidation and brutality. In 1991, he founded Death Row, not as a typical label, but as a heavily armed enterprise. The Los Angeles office employed only guards, predominantly Bloods gang members, armed to the teeth. Artists signed contracts in blood, and betrayal resulted in severe consequences. In 1992, he forced Eazy-E to release Dr. Dre from NWA using weapons in negotiations. Accounts claim Knight's crew suspended Eazy from the ceiling, fracturing his ribs to compel his signature. Dre's departure led to Death Row earning over $75 million within a year, making Knight seemingly untouchable. However, 1996 marked a turning point with Tupac's death. Knight was unharmed in the car, while Tupac suffered 4 gunshot wounds. Tupac possessed an unsigned contract to leave the label. A week later, Tupac's mother sued Knight, alleging royalty theft. Speculation arose that Knight orchestrated Tupac's murder to prevent him from leaving. Death Row crumbled. Artists departed. Dre launched Aftermath. Snoop joined No Limit. Knight desperately clung to his dwindling power, engaging in numerous fights, lawsuits, and arrests over the following decade. He assaulted a man for wearing a Crips shirt. Over $30 million in royalties vanished from Death Row's accounts, leading to bankruptcy in 2006 with a debt of $137 million. Knight was financially ruined, but his downfall deepened. In 2015, on the Straight Outta Compton film set, Knight fatally struck Terry Carter with his truck. The incident was recorded on camera. Although he claimed self-defense, the footage revealed him intentionally hitting Carter twice. In 2018, Knight pleaded guilty, receiving a 28-year sentence. From a ruthless kingpin, Knight is now inmate P76518, serving time, earning $12 monthly, while Death Row continues under Snoop Dogg's management. His legacy is inextricably linked to the violent empire he created. 13. Wilson Pickett, a soul music legend whose life was marred by a self-destructive pattern of alcohol abuse, violence, and sex scandals. Pickett's iconic status as a Southern soul icon of the 1960s and 70s was secured by timeless hits like In the Midnight Hour and Land of 1000 Dances. However, a turbulent and self-destructive personality lurked beneath his public persona. On June 17, 1973, in an Atlanta bar, Pickett, fueled by excessive alcohol consumption, unleashed a destructive rage, damaging furniture, threatening employees, and issuing violent threats. Although no injuries occurred, the incident irrevocably tarnished his public image. Subsequently fined $10,000 and temporarily prohibited from performing, he suffered significant career setbacks, losing major contracts shortly after. Pickett's life then took a downward spiral. The ensuing years were characterized by bar fights, alcohol-related driving incidents, and a serious car accident in 1987. His lifestyle was a constant cycle of chaotic parties, brawls, and drunken episodes. Furthermore, Pickett engaged in at least 4 extramarital affairs, resulting in multiple children and protracted estate disputes following his passing. In 2006, he succumbed to heart failure, a tragic conclusion to a life consumed by alcohol and turmoil. His legacy remains a complex duality, a musical virtuoso, yet a stark warning against the devastating consequences of addiction and violence. 12. Ike Turner, a prominent figure in R&B, met a solitary end amidst a cocaine haze. Initially celebrated as a rock and roll pioneer, his 1951 recording of Rocket 88, featuring his piano playing, is widely recognized as the world's first rock song. He masterminded the Ike and Tina Turner Revue, propelling hits like Proud Mary and River Deep Mountain High to global acclaim, creating a hugely successful duo. Yet, lurking beneath the surface of success was a horrifying darkness. Ike and Tina Turner's 1957 marriage wasn't a romantic union. It was a 19-year prison sentence for Tina. Daily life resembled imprisonment within a luxurious facade. Ike exerted absolute control over finances, speech, and movement. He once questioned her about a minor billing discrepancy. Substantial show earnings, sometimes reaching $30,000 a night, were pocketed by Ike, while Tina received a mere $50 weekly, sufficient only for gas and basic toiletries. Backstage was a brutal scene. Tina endured at least 50 beatings during their marriage. Hospitalized once with a ruptured eardrum after a violent assault involving fists and a guitar cord, Ike meticulously documented the frequency of his abuse as if it were a managerial task. In 1971, following a beating that resulted in a bruised shoulder, a lacerated neck, and requiring 9 stitches, she was coerced into relinquishing all her assets. In 1976, after a brutal attack with a shoe heel at the Statler Hilton, Tina escaped with only 36 cents and a gas card, barefoot and destitute. The abuse didn't end there. Ike transformed his band into a covert sex ring. During a 1965 tour, he engaged in sexual relations with at least 5 female dancers, including 17-year-old twin sisters from Oklahoma. By 1970, the press revealed Ike's paternity of at least 11 illegitimate children, all supported by band funds. Money Tina earned through her performances. Offstage, Ike faced accusations of theft from musicians, amassing suitcases overflowing with tens of thousands of dollars in tips, wages, and bonuses. Saxophonist Raymond Hill claimed he received only $187 for 16 shows. No one dared to resist, as Ike always carried a concealed firearm, prepared to use it against any defiance. Following his ex-wife's escape, Ike Turner's life spiraled downwards. He immersed himself in cocaine to cope with the void. Once, he engaged in a 72-hour cocaine binge, collapsing in a bathroom with a profusely bleeding nose. Between 1981 and 1985, he was arrested 9 times, including an incident where he beat a girlfriend until her teeth shattered after she disposed of his cocaine. While intoxicated, he wrecked vehicles. In 3 years, he totaled 5 Cadillacs and a Corvette purchased just 2 weeks earlier. In July 1989, a police raid on his View Park residence uncovered over 14 grams of cocaine, a 9mm handgun, and $21,700 in cash hidden within a piano. He received an 18-month sentence in a California correctional facility. Even in prison, he continued to cause disruptions, once striking his head against a wall after being denied additional painkillers. Music. Upon release, he attempted to rehabilitate his image with the 2001 album Here and Now. Although Grammy-nominated, it was a commercial failure. He lacked gigs and collaborators. His credit cards were maxed out, and his utilities were disconnected. He subsisted on Social Security and a meager portion of Rocket 88 royalties, less than $800 monthly. The tragic end came on December 12, 2007, when Ike Turner was discovered deceased on his sofa 18 hours after his last contact. On the table lay a porcelain dish with cocaine residue, a rolled-up $100 bill, and an empty whiskey glass. The coroner attributed the cause of death to a chronic cocaine overdose, compounded by severe liver damage, a weakened heart, and hypertension. His estate consisted of $13,412 in the bank, an old piano, several worn notebooks, and some unreleased music. 11 James Brown, the soul king who died alone without a farewell. James Brown, a name that set the world dancing, an unwavering icon of soul, funk, and R&B music. From a reformatory, he transformed Please, Please, Please into a million-selling hit, constructing his own empire without succumbing to any record label's control. At his zenith, he possessed 17 homes, 3 radio stations, a private airport, and performed more than 350 nights annually. Yet, behind the stage lights existed a tumultuous life that plummeted into the depths of despair. During the 70s and 80s, while reigning supreme, whispers circulated about illicit funds flowing into his radio network, shell corporations, suitcases brimming with $50,000 in cash, and staff with histories of arms dealing. This was merely the tip of the iceberg. His name surfaced in FBI files, suspected of laundering drug money and proceeds from illegal performances. Investigator Raymond Clay disappeared after connecting James to the Colombo Mafia. Remaining witnesses either recanted their testimonies or vanished without a trace. By the 80s, James Brown became deeply involved with cocaine, PCP, and sedatives. On September 24, 1988, he unleashed unrestrained fury, storming a building with a firearm over a stolen bathroom, subsequently leading an 80-minute two-state car chase involving police and helicopters. Inside the vehicle, firearms, narcotics, blood, and eventual collapse. Sentenced to 6 years, he served 27 months, emerging a shattered man, his voice sounding as if it had been dragged through rough terrain. In the 90s, he attempted a comeback, but albums failed to chart, shows were canceled, and he physically assaulted his wife, attacked fans, threatened staff, and continued his backstage drug use. Adrienne, his wife, who endured years of abuse, died suddenly before a trial, taking secrets with her. A stage manager perished in a car fire. A technician who sued him disappeared. All concluded strangely, suspiciously. In his final years, James was a skeletal figure weighing less than 110 pounds, trembling on stage, requiring 2 individuals to support him. He died on Christmas Day 2006 in a cold room. No family, no friends, no tears. His burial took place 75 days later. 15 years on, his legacy remains fractured by 13 alleged children, 3 family factions, and countless lawyers. 10 R. Kelly, a fall from R&B royalty to convicted criminal. A dazzling star, the dominant figure in 90s R&B, possessing a captivating voice and chart-topping hits. That was R. Kelly. His 1993 album, A 12 Play, was an immediate success, instantly establishing him as the R&B king. I Believe I Can Fly and Bump and Grind transcended mere songs. They became anthems for a generation. Kelly's songwriting talent was exceptional, perfectly capturing each musical trend and cementing his legendary status. From spectacular performances to prestigious award shows, he was the ultimate role model. However, a terrible secret, a growing darkness, lurked beneath this glamorous facade, ultimately consuming everything. This began during his prime years. In 1994, at the height of his career, Kelly shocked the world with a scandalous revelation. He secretly married Aaliyah, a teenage musical prodigy just 15 years old, a fraudulent marriage certificate, a clandestine ceremony shrouded in secrecy, marking Kelly's first significant transgression. Upon discovery, the marriage was swiftly annulled by the court. The public was astonished, yet Kelly remained unfazed, leveraging his fame to quell the controversy. Rumors circulated. Kelly showed a preference for underage girls, very young ones. Teenage girls were enticed and manipulated, yet the blinding spotlight of his career shielded him from suspicion. The full extent of the horror became apparent in 2002. A pornographic video surfaced depicting Kelly engaging in explicit acts with an underage girl. The world watched in disbelief. The once celebrated artist was now perceived as a criminal. That video wasn't simply evidence, it shattered his carefully crafted image. The subsequent trial was protracted. Kelly spent millions on high-powered legal representation. Surprisingly, he was acquitted. Yet public opinion remained unconvinced. Seeds of doubt had been sown, and Kelly's reputation continued to deteriorate. He continued releasing albums and performing, but the perception of his fans had irrevocably changed. The 2000s marked Kelly's descent into self-inflicted ruin. In 2005, numerous women came forward, accusing him of predatory behavior towards them as minors. They described dark, confined spaces where Kelly exerted absolute control over their lives. Lawsuits mounted, allegations of domestic violence, financial fraud, and the manipulation of young artists such as Sparkle. Kelly was not merely an abuser. He was a tyrannical figure within the music industry. He defrauded collaborators, cheated managers, and producers. By 2013, he faced millions of dollars in debt while maintaining an extravagant lifestyle, engaging in excessive partying and reckless spending. By 2019, his tax debts soared past $5 million, culminating in asset seizures. Friends abandoned him, family ties fractured, yet Kelly pressed on, seemingly impervious to consequence. Then, 2019 arrived and his world crumbled. The documentary, Surviving R. Kelly, unleashed a torrent of revelations, exposing the truth behind the facade. Victims, now adult women, bravely shared their harrowing experiences. Confinement in secret apartments, enduring physical and psychological abuse, stripped of their freedom. One woman recounted being held captive for weeks, receiving sustenance only when Kelly permitted. Evidence mounted. Videos, testimonies, and documents. Public outrage reached a fever pitch. Sony Music severed ties. Spotify and Apple Music removed his music from their platforms. Award ceremonies expunged his name from their histories. Once a king, Kelly was now ostracized by society. But the saga wasn't over. In 2022, justice prevailed. After decades of evading accountability, R. Kelly received a 30-year sentence for the sexual abuse of minors, human trafficking, and operating a criminal sex enterprise. From a beloved music icon, R. Kelly is now a convicted felon facing the consequences of his actions. 9. Bobby Womack, a soulful voice dragged into darkness by inner demons. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, into a musical family, Bobby Womack was destined for soul music greatness. However, few knew his brilliant career was intertwined with shocking scandals. The beautiful melodies of Across 110th Street weren't only a lament for the impoverished, but also Womack's own confession of a life consumed by treachery, violence, addiction, and terrible transgressions. In 1965, Bobby Womack stunned the world by marrying Barbara Cook, Sam Cooke's widow, only 77 days after the legendary singer's death. He had called Sam Cooke Uncle Bobby in his youth. This event ignited fury within the music industry, nearly destroying his career instantly. Public forgiveness was elusive, especially as he moved into Sam's home, drove his Cadillac, and appropriated his possessions as his own. Yet the drama didn't conclude there. A far greater controversy erupted when Bobby began an affair with Linda, Sam Cooke's stepdaughter, while Barbara worked. One day, Barbara returned home to find them unclothed in the recording studio. Her fury was immediate, escalating to the point where she pointed a gun at Womack. Though the weapon didn't discharge, the scandal spread rapidly, shattering his life. Linda was sent away, Womack was evicted, and his career plummeted. In the following years, Bobby succumbed to heroin, cocaine, and uncontrolled excess. A multi-million-dollar fortune evaporated during this chaotic period. $2.3 million represented only a small portion of his drug-fueled spending. He faced death numerous times in fights and unthinkable acts of violence. His performances lost their vibrancy, his voice deteriorated, and his health declined. Most damagingly, Womack became a thief of Sam Cooke's legacy. Haunted by his deceased friend's spirit, Womack allegedly sold Sam's unreleased recordings for minimal sums, spiraling further into irreparable financial ruin. Finally, on June 27, 2014, Bobby Womack, once the owner of a music empire, ended his life in isolation. His California residence held only grim memories. No visitors came. No one stayed. The funeral of a legend attracted a mere 9 mourners. His fame diminished, and Womack's music now serves as a faint echo of a bygone era. 8. Iconic singer Marvin Gaye, a musical giant and a life cut short. Marvin Gaye, a monumental figure in music during the 1960s and 70s, didn't merely influence music with classics such as What's Going On, but profoundly impacted it with his exceptional vocal talent. However, this immense success came at a significant personal cost, marked by hardship, substance abuse, and an unbearable family catastrophe. While Gaye's albums sold in the millions, a deeply troubled personal life existed beneath the surface. During the 1970s, drug use significantly impacted his life, transforming him into a solitary figure, often seen wandering late at night. In spite of his widespread acclaim, he wrestled with addiction and fractured relationships. His marriage to Anna Gordy ended in divorce in 1977, initiating a protracted and expensive legal battle. Subsequently, his career declined as he became increasingly reliant on drugs. He accumulated millions of dollars in tax debt, and allegations of domestic violence further alienated him, eroding the trust of those closest to him. Finally, on 1st April 1984, a devastating event occurred. A dispute with his father over finances escalated into a violent confrontation. In a fit of rage, Marvin Sr. shot his son twice in the chest, bringing a premature end to the life of a musical icon. These tragic events not only silenced a remarkable talent, but also concluded a life filled with profound suffering. 7. Ronald Isley, a music legend's tumultuous journey through addiction, infidelity, and imprisonment. Ronald Isley, the iconic lead vocalist of the Isley Brothers and a six-decade R&B giant, captivated audiences with enduring classics such as Shout and This Old Heart of Mine. However, a turbulent and destructive path lay hidden beneath the surface of his celebrated career. At the height of his success in the late 1990s, Ronald spiraled into a vortex of extramarital affairs and substance abuse. Beginning in 1993, his seemingly idyllic marriage to Angela Winbush crumbled as clandestine relationships came to light. By 2002, their divorce exploded into a bitter legal battle involving assets and child custody, catapulting Ronald into a maelstrom of negative media attention. Yet, a more devastating blow was still to come. Since the 1980s, Ronald had struggled with a cocaine addiction. Performances were canceled, his vocal abilities suffered, and tensions escalated within the band. The breaking point arrived in 2006 when Ronald received a 3-year prison sentence for tax evasion exceeding $3 million, effectively ending his career. Released in 2010, he attempted a comeback, but the damage was irreparable. His reputation dimmed, his career nosedived, leaving the once celebrated R&B legend as merely a fading echo in the memories of his devoted fans. 6. David Prater, a soul music icon, succumbed to a life of addiction and wrongdoing. He was one half of the renowned duo Sam and Dave, achieving global fame with chart-topping songs such as Soul Man and Hold On, I'm Comin'. His deep baritone voice captivated the 1960s. He embodied the spirit of Southern soul music, a powerful representation of Black musical heritage. However, his success ended abruptly after 1970. Following the breakup of Sam and Dave, Prater spiraled into substance abuse, cocaine, alcohol, and promiscuity, fueled by reckless nights in low-rent clubs, gradually silencing his once celebrated voice. By the late 1970s, his extramarital affairs and violent abuse of his wife while under the influence of drugs destroyed his family. His 3 children were left without parental care. His wife endured constant fear and abuse. In 1987, Prater was arrested for selling crack cocaine to an undercover police officer in New Jersey. This incident severely damaged his reputation, resulting in only a suspended sentence and a small $2,580 fine. A year later, in March 1988, he died tragically in a car accident on a trip to Georgia. His body was severely injured, with blood covering the driver's seat. His death was met with little public sorrow. His musical achievements were overshadowed by years of sin and addiction. A significant talent was lost, and no effort was made to restore his image. 5. CeeLo Green, a legendary figure ruined by substance abuse, sexual misconduct allegations, and inflammatory pronouncements. Initially a shining star in American music, CeeLo Green achieved recognition with Nappy Roots' Crazy and his solo success, Forget You. He reigned as a prominent R&B artist and beloved judge on The Voice in the 2000s. However, his career imploded rapidly. In July 2012, a private party at his residence resulted in allegations from a female guest claiming he drugged and assaulted her while she was incapacitated. While avoiding a rape conviction, CeeLo confessed to providing drugs. The true downfall, however, stemmed from a deeply damaging tweet. If she's unconscious, it's not rape. This statement destroyed his career. A 2014 conviction further sealed his fate, eliminating all professional opportunities, including his role on The Voice. Beyond the public scandal lay deeper issues: prolonged cocaine addiction, numerous extramarital affairs, public altercations and property damage. His family life crumbled, his marriage ended, and friendships dissolved. His subsequent musical releases were largely ignored. The once globally celebrated voice is now a marginalized and forgotten entity. 4. Frankie Lymon, a teenage musical angel consumed by drugs, sex, and legal turmoil. Frankie Lymon was the leading light of American doo-wop music, achieving national fame at age 13 with Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Alongside the teenagers, he became the first black teenage idol to top Billboard's charts. However, this success masked a tragic destiny. In 1956, a week after its release, Lymon's debut single sold over 150,000 copies daily. G Records reaped millions, while Lymon received a paltry $10 weekly. Even his stage guitar was borrowed. His transformation from a prodigious talent to a manipulated pawn marked the beginning of his downfall. In 1957, following a Georgia performance, Frankie experimented with heroin. This single use initiated a rapid decline. Within 9 months, he was injecting almost nightly. Emaciated, with glazed eyes, he performed like a spectral figure. Every press interaction was disastrous. Expelled from the group in 1958, Frankie began selling his songwriting rights repeatedly to various labels using forged documents. Fraud charges accumulated to over $80,000, equivalent to over $700,000 today. Consequently, labels severed ties, bandmates distanced themselves, and studios barred him from entry. He became prone to fits of rage, destruction, and accusations that the white music industry was exploiting him. His descent from a celebrated singer to a full-blown addict was complete. Between 1960 and 1967, Lymon endured 3 brief, tumultuous marriages. One wife departed after 3 months when he eloped with a blonde model. A single mother was abandoned 6 weeks post-wedding, burdened with unpaid rent and a Columbia Records debt. Another wife discovered his infidelity, prompting a violent outburst that resulted in her injury. Amidst this turmoil, he entered rehab in December 1967, grasping at a slim chance of redemption and securing a new recording contract. Yet, days after receiving an advance, he squandered it all on heroin. The recording session was canceled, extinguishing his last opportunity. On February 27, 1968, Lymon was discovered deceased in his grandmother's bathroom. His pockets contained heroin, a syringe, and an unfinished song. Whether he intended a comeback or chose to end his life remains unknown. At 25, he left behind a fake ring, an unsubmitted job application, and a 6-year legal battle over the rights to his hit song, involving 3 ex-wives and costing nearly $500,000. 3. Rick James, a funk icon whose life was consumed by a criminal web. Rick James, the celebrated singer of Super Freak, reigned as a funk music star in the 1980s. His enduring hits, such as Give It To Me Baby and Super Freak, earned him immense popularity, resulting in sales exceeding 15 million records. A lucrative Motown contract worth $11 million was signed, masking the dark underbelly of his glamorous existence, a life steeped in drugs, violence, and criminal behavior. However, Rick James's fame came at a terrible cost. A decadent lifestyle characterized by all-night parties, cocaine, crack, vicious assaults, and horrific crimes. Having reached the pinnacle of success, he plummeted into a self-created abyss of wickedness. His downfall began in the 1990s as his drug addiction and criminal actions spiraled out of control. This descent led him to make terrible, irreversible decisions. In the summer of 1991, a shocking incident unfolded. James and his girlfriend, Tanya Hijazi, hosted a 3-day drug-fueled party. When a dancer declined their sexual advances, she was bound and subjected to a brutal beating. Throughout the night, she was compelled to snort cocaine. Her hair was set ablaze with a Zippo lighter while James yelled, "I made this world, you're just trash." This horrific ordeal only ended when James and Tanya passed out from drug overdoses. A week later, a hotel receptionist suffered a similar brutal attack. The scandal sent shockwaves through the public, exposing James's crimes. His lawyer's defense, citing temporary insanity due to cocaine abuse, was unconvincing. Facing 12 charges and a potential 30-year sentence, James served only 2 years. Tanya received a 15-month sentence. Upon his release in 1996, his life and career lay in ruins. Record labels rejected him, debts mounted, and accusations of violence persisted. Countless killings and unresolved investigations cast a shadow over Rick James's name. Under FBI surveillance due to his bodyguard's murders and mysterious disappearances, his life was a string of unpunished crimes. He was discovered dead on August 6, 2004, alone in his modest San Fernando Valley apartment. Toxicology reports revealed the presence of 9 different drugs in his system. Over 40 arrests, 3 unresolved lawsuits, and millions in debt serve as a stark reminder of the legendary singer's catastrophic fall from grace. 2. Chris Brown, a musical prodigy who self-destructed through substance abuse, violence, and the assault of women. He was once a leading figure in American R&B. At 16, his song Run It topped the Billboard charts, transforming an unknown black teenager into a global superstar. His debut album achieved sales exceeding 3 million copies. By age 17, he owned a $1 million home, luxury vehicles, and was considered Usher's successor. Brown embodied the icon of a new generation, captivating audiences with his singing, dancing, and commanding stage presence. Yet beneath this veneer of success lay a troubled soul, a self-destructive pattern taking hold. In late 2007, Chris Brown began a tumultuous relationship with Rihanna, marking a turning point toward his downfall. Publicly, they presented a romantic image. Privately, their relationship was characterized by jealousy, possessiveness, and rage, fueled by ego and cocaine use. On February 7, 2009, following a disagreement with Rihanna over a text message, Brown physically assaulted her. He delivered 7 punches, bit her lip, choked her, and slammed her head against the window of a parked Lamborghini. This 90-second attack shattered his previously pristine public image. Following this incident, Chris Brown's life spiraled further. He received probation, community service, and a 5-year, 50-yard restraining order from Rihanna. However, his problems worsened. By 2010, he was abusing lean, a codeine-based cough syrup, along with marijuana and cocaine to maintain his stage presence. A staff member witnessed him snorting 3 lines of cocaine without hesitation. During a 2011 interview, when questioned about Rihanna, he destroyed a mirror and threw a chair through a 14th floor window, sending glass raining onto the street below. He engaged in volatile relationships, simultaneously dating both Rihanna and Karrueche Tran, ultimately being rejected by both. In late 2013, he assaulted a man outside a hotel, resulting in a 108-day jail sentence and a 15-pound weight loss, leaving his face gaunt and resembling that of a zombie. Upon his release, he exhibited paranoia, sending images of his gun collection to an ex-girlfriend and threatening to kill her if she pursued other relationships. Courts subsequently prohibited him from possessing weapons and mandated psychological evaluations. In 2016, police surrounded his mansion for 7 hours after he allegedly held a gun to a woman's head over a necklace. Authorities seized suspected heroin, 2,300 unlabeled pills, and a Glock handgun. 3 years later in Paris, he faced accusations of raping a model in a luxury hotel, a final devastating blow to his reputation. Chris Brown continues to produce music and maintain an online presence, but he remains a symbol of self-destruction. In a 2022 livestream, he confessed to 4 sleepless days, relying on Xanax to prevent himself from harming others. He reportedly spends over $30,000 monthly on sedatives and therapy. While Chris Brown remains alive, his once brilliant career is effectively over. 1. Whitney Houston, one of the most iconic singers of the 20th century, achieved global fame with "I Will Always Love You" from The Bodyguard. Her album sold over 45 million copies worldwide, marking a career peak. However, this success was followed by a downward spiral of addiction and tragedy. From 1993, after marrying Bobby Brown, Whitney began using cocaine to cope with stress, a devastating turning point. Her dependence extended to alcohol and Xanax, with weekly drug expenses reaching $12,000 backstage. She and Bobby engaged in drug use between performances. Their relationship deteriorated rapidly, marked by violence. Whitney threw a phone at Bobby, injuring him, and he retaliated by punching her. Despite the turmoil, their volatile, destructive relationship persisted. In 2003, when Bobby assaulted her, Whitney refused to testify against him. During her addiction, Whitney also concealed a long-term relationship with Robin Crawford, her assistant. She confided in her diary, "I love Robin in a way no one understands." But Bobby's jealousy forced Robin from Whitney's life, a secret sorrow adding to her pain. Despite her vast wealth exceeding $100 million, Whitney amassed significant debt. By 2006, she had less than $40,000 remaining, spending recklessly $750,000 in 2 weeks on drugs, jewelry, and designer clothing. She even pawned a Grammy Award for sedatives. This cycle of addiction affected her daughter, Bobby Christina, who experienced neglect and witnessed her mother's struggles. Bobby Christina once wandered alone in a hotel while her mother disappeared for 3 days. Bobby Christina's life mirrored her mother's, tragically ending in 2015. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston was found dead in her Beverly Hilton hotel bathroom, submerged in a bathtub. The autopsy revealed cocaine, Xanax, Flexeril, and alcohol in her system. Her appearance showed signs of a struggle. Drug residue and a candle were found nearby. She died alone in a 375-a-night room. A neighbor heard a noise at 3 a.m. but dismissed it as water. Although Whitney Houston left behind a phenomenal musical legacy, selling over 200 million records, her life remains a poignant story of immense talent overshadowed by personal demons, betrayal, and ultimately tragedy. Thus, we've explored the shadowy lives of several legendary Black R&B artists. Their personal struggles, poor decisions, and unforgettable controversies significantly impacted their lives for years. A true loss for such immensely gifted individuals. Considering these artists, for whom do you feel the deepest regret? Share your opinions in the comments section below, and remember to subscribe for more untold stories from behind the glamorous facade.